Hello, guys. We are moving on to Lesson 5 and Subunit 3. We are in Subunit 3. We are in Lesson 5. As usual, you will begin by doing 5 minutes of vocab activities. Please pause the video and do 5 minutes of vocab. All right, now that you're back, we're moving on to Activity 2. And we'll be listening to Fish Cheeks today. It is a narrative essay, and it's by Amy Tan. And you may have heard of her other novels. She wrote The Joy Luck Club and The Kitchen God's Wife. Amy was born in the United States to immigrant parents from China. So that means her parents came from China and lived in the United States, and then she was born here. And so a lot of her writing explores mother-daughter relationships and also having a Chinese-American experience. So this essay, Fish Cheeks, was her first published essay, and it tells the story of a Christmas Eve dinner that Amy experienced as a teenager. So you're going to go ahead and listen to this. I'll go ahead and play it, or you can pause the video, play it yourself, and then skip over me playing it.
Fish Cheeks. I fell in love with the minister's son the winter I turned 14. He was not Chinese, but as white as Mary in the manger. For Christmas, I prayed for this blonde-haired boy, Robert, and a slim new American nose. When I found out that my parents had invited the minister's family over for Christmas Eve dinner, I cried. What would Robert think of our shabby Chinese Christmas? What would he think of our noisy Chinese relatives who lacked proper American manners? What terrible disappointment would he feel upon seeing not a roasted turkey and sweet potatoes, but Chinese food? On Christmas Eve, I saw that my mother had outdone herself in creating a strange menu. She was pulling black veins out of the backs of fleshy prawns. The kitchen was littered with appalling mounds of raw food. A slimy rock cod with bulging eyes that pleaded not to be thrown into a pan of hot oil. Tofu, which looked like stacked wedges of rubbery white sponges. A bowl soaking dried fungus back to life. A plate of squid, their backs crisscrossed with knife markings so they resembled bicycle tires. And then they arrived. The minister's family and all my relatives in a clamor of doorbells and rumpled Christmas packages. Robert grunted hello, and I pretended he was not worthy of existence. Dinner threw me deeper into despair. My relatives licked the ends of their chopsticks and reached across the table, dipping them into the dozen or so plates of food. Robert and his family waited patiently for platters to be passed to them. My relatives murmured with pleasure when my mother brought out the whole steamed fish. Robert grimaced. Then my father poked his chopsticks just below the fisheye and plucked out the soft meat. "Amy, your favorite," he said, offering me the tender fish cheek. I wanted to disappear. At the end of the meal, my father leaned back and belched loudly, thanking my mother for her fine cooking. "It's a polite Chinese custom to show you are satisfied," explained my father to our astonished guests. Robert was looking down at his plate with a reddened face. The minister managed to muster up a quiet burp. I was stunned into silence for the rest of the night. After everyone had gone, my mother said to me, "You want to be the same as American girls on the outside." She handed me an early gift. It was a miniskirt in beige tweed. "But inside, you must always be Chinese. You must be proud you are different. Your only shame is to have shame." And even though I didn't agree with her then, I knew that she understood how much I had suffered during the evening's dinner. It wasn't until many years later, long after I had gotten over my crush on Robert, that I was able to fully appreciate her lesson and the true purpose behind our particular menu. For Christmas Eve that year, She had chosen all my favorite foods.
Okay, so cute, I don't know, cute. A little story about teenager Christmas Eve dinner. And so I want you to try to write 3 to 4 sentences summarizing the story. So when you do a summary, you want to make sure that you're going over the major details, but you're not giving a ton of minor details. Giving some major details. If somebody was going to ask you, what is this story about? How would you summarize it in 3 to 4 sentences? Pause that video and write your summary here now. Okay, so just some thoughts here. The setting of the story, hopefully you included that in your summary. That would be when, Christmas Eve, and where would be at Amy's house. And something to know is, it doesn't tell us exactly how the two families know each other, but if we were going to guess, we know that they know each other from church. And it does say the minister's son. So they are talking about they know each other from church and that the father is the minister of the church. And if we had to guess about Amy and Robert, their relationship outside of this story, we would have to guess most likely that they don't really interact with each other, especially because they don't talk to each other the whole night. It sounds like Robert says hello, and that's pretty much it. All right, and then hit that number 2 at the bottom to go to the next question. We're going to take a closer look at the main characters of the story and also the emotions that go along with the story. So question 1 says, what was the strongest emotion that Amy, the narrator, felt in this story? Support your answer with a detail from the text. How did Amy feel throughout the story? I'm going to go ahead and tell you. You can either say she felt embarrassed, or shameful, but I think embarrassed is the better word here. So then I want you to find a quote that shows that she felt embarrassed during this interaction. And then the next one says, what was the strongest emotion that you felt when reading the story? Which part of the story made you feel this way? So you can just answer that in complete sentences. What emotion did you feel? And what part made you feel that way? And finally, besides Amy, what character did you think was the other most important character in your story? So some other characters we have in the story would be Robert, Amy's extended family, like aunts and uncles, Amy's mother, Amy's father, and then Robert's family. So if you were going to say what other character was most important, who would you pick and why? Answer that now. All right, now we're at number 3 at the top. And in paragraph 3, Tan gives precise descriptions. So it says, reread Fish Cheeks. We're actually just going to skim it, and we're going to find some moments where Tan slows down, zooms in, and gives precise descriptions. Identify the moments and what happens. So where is she zooming in and slowing down? Well, a lot of this beginning stuff has to do with the mom writing food. So Tan focuses on her mother preparing the different foods they will eat for dinner. Right here goes all over the fleshy prawns, slimy rock cod, a bowl soaking dried fungus, all that stuff. And then later, it kind of slows down and zooms in on like the family's actions, right? The end of the chopsticks reached across the table, dipped them in dozens of plates of food. My father poked his chopstick just below the fish eye. when he belches, right? Tan also zooms in on the actions of her family. So then down here, why do you think she emphasizes these moments? Well, I think the point of this story, guys, is to get the reader to almost experience this with her. She wants the reader to experience this night with her. It allows the reader to use all his or her senses, right? What things look like, sound like, smell like, taste like, to see everything that's happening. Also, what about like we're really able to kind of feel how uncomfortable and embarrassed she is? And that is definitely shown in the way that she zooms in. Reader can feel how embarrassed it is. Good. So make sure you have those copied down. You can pause here if you need more time to write and hit save and continue. Once you have those two answered, go ahead and click next. All right, now we're going to highlight sensory words and phrases that Tan uses specifically to describe the food, to just describe the food. Okay. Ooh, all right. What about the black veins out of the backs of fleshy prawns? That's pretty sensory there. You could see that. Slimy, bulging eyes. Tofu, which looked like stacked wedges of rubbery white sponges. That helps us see what that looked like. A plate of squid. Their backs crisscrossed with knife markings so they resembled bicycle tires. Those all for sure were some sensory words and phrases. So the question here is, how does Tan want her reader to feel when reading this description? How can you tell? Explain the meanings, feelings, and ideas associated with the words that she uses. Let's start with that first question. How does the author want you to feel when reading this description? I would say she wants the reader to feel disgusted, right? The word that she uses have some pretty negative connotations. So most likely she wants us to be grossed out. And the way that we can tell is because she uses the most gross and unappetizing words to describe the food. So then we just think about, why does she choose these details? Why does she want us to feel disgusted? Well, it would probably help the reader understand why she is so upset that Robert and his family are eating with them, right? She's embarrassed by what her family finds, good to eat. And so if she describes it in a really gross way, then we can understand why she's so embarrassed that Robert and his family are there who might not have had this food before. Click save and continue. That's going to take us to our next part. So now that we've highlighted some of those descriptions, especially about the food, let's take a vote on which description you reacted to the most. So which one of these do you react to the most? Do you find the most interesting or gross? Click one of those and then hit hand in. Next, we're on activity 4. Now you're going to have an opportunity to do some writing. You are going to choose a food that you really, really love or that one you really, really hate. So think about what kind of food you want to write about. A food that you love or a food that you hate. We have just read a precise description of food from the narrator's point of view. So when you're doing your writing, you're going to want to think about sensory language that Tan used and how her word choice showed you her feelings about the food. So you guys are going to try to do the exact same thing. So maybe think of a specific food that you love or that you don't really like. Make sure that you can picture what that food looks like. Make sure you can remember what that food tastes like. Make sure you can think of what the food smells like, the sounds of people eating this food. And you want to think about how do you want your audience to feel when they hear your descriptions of food. So if this is your favorite food, you're going to want to use words that have good connotations. If you're describing something that you hate, you're going to want to use negative connotations. Go ahead and click next. And you are going to write for 10 minutes. Choose a food that you love or that you don't like. Write a scene where people are preparing or eating this food. Guys, you're not saying, I really love Chick-fil-A because Chick-fil-A is delicious and they have fries and chicken and I really like it. You're not doing that. You are writing a scene where people are preparing or eating this food. So instead, you can say that you arrived to Chick-fil-A and automatically you could smell the aroma of whatever and whatever. And you watched as the service workers did this, this, and this, and this. And then you sat down and what did the food look like? What did the food taste like? And that stuff. That is your goal here. You are writing for 10 minutes. Pause the video and do that now. Very good job writing for that 10 minutes. You guys are going to skip the share, go on to the wrap up, number 6. Here's what you just wrote about. Tell me what senses did you use? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. Write down all the ones that you used. Pick out the one detail that you think makes your feelings clearest to the reader. What shows the way you feel about this food? Put that down here. When you're done, click Hand In. You have number 7, the exit ticket. The exit ticket is asking you to review this paragraph. You are going to drag each answer option to the correct box in the table to explain why the author uses this language. Okay, so read each quote and then move these to the correct answer that you believe is correct. And then choose one of the descriptions above and rewrite the sentence to make the food sound delicious or appetizing. Then hand in, and that is all you're doing for lesson 5. Thank you.